Janky climbing, lackluster stealth, random puzzles, and loads of bugs, glitches, and performance issues. This sums up my time with Lord of the Rings Gollum, a game I put 7 hours into it and had to put down because it's really that bad and boring. So if someone came to me and asked me the question, what would a Gollum game be? I would probably say some form of a stealth game with some platforming. Think something kind of narrative heavy like Uncharted and replace the combat sections with stealth sections. And on the surface, that's what Gollum is. But nothing is fully realised. The stealth is extremely basic mechanically, but also the level design is very boring. The cutscenes look off and there are basically 0 characters other than Gollum, and the pacing is atrocious. I have to start by talking about the opening 4-ish hours of this game because it is seriously some of the most boring gameplay I have ever experienced. Basically, it's set before the Lord of the Rings. Gollum has been captured by orcs, and this is the part where he's enslaved and tortured into telling them the whereabouts of the ring. Now, you'd expect this section to be a massive prison break, slinking around, avoiding orcs, so that eventually he could break out and then pursue Sam and Frodo. And there is some stealth and a pretty boring escape section, but the majority of these first 4 hours are doing menial jobs for the slavers. I'm not even messing when I say this, but you have to wrangle beasts into a cave, you have to climb down tunnels to blow up barrels, and you have to platform around to collect dog tags of dead workers. Every now and again there'll be a stealth section that is okay, but the rest of these tasks are so stupidly boring, and it has a lot of platforming, which doesn't really feel very good. Gollum has a basic moveset. He can sprint, jump, climb, crouch, and throw some stones to create distractions, but he never controls 100% right. Movement is very floaty, and there's this context-sensitive jump that you can press while sprinting. And sometimes it would register and jump you to a ledge, but other times it would just be a normal jump and then you'll fall off and die. Even the climbing, which is basically what you'll be doing all game, has some jank to it, getting caught in terrain. And don't get me started on the camera. I'm not sure if I have footage because I might have been playing this on the deck at the time, but randomly while climbing, and I'm not messing, the camera would flip upside down. And it weirdly made me feel quite motion sick, way more motion sick than anything I've ever experienced in a VR game. Now, I have to keep saying this throughout the review, that this is a AA game, and I am expecting some jank, and to be honest, I kind of find the AA jank a bit charming. But here, it's egregious, and it's only worsened by the performance. So firstly, I have it on good authority that the console ports are rough. Like at points, they struggle to boot, which is a massive shame. So make sure you watch a review of a console port if you're looking into this game. But to be honest, I don't know why you'd really be interested in this game. I had the PC version and I simply couldn't hit a consistent frame rate. Here are my specs, and I bounce around from 1080p to 1440p, low, medium and high settings. I turned AMD FSR on and off, and there were times I could achieve 60 FPS with the game not looking great. But in general, the game hovered around 40 to 50 FPS and would stutter constantly. Now, I know I don't have a monster of a PC, but it's more than capable of running modern games at 1080p, if not 1440p. Now, FSR did help, but there was this stupid bug that wouldn't let me turn it on. So it defaulted off. No joke, I would try turning it on and it would do nothing. And then at one point randomly it was turned on and it helped big time. But then I accidentally turned it off and haven't managed to turn it back on again because the game simply won't let me. The weirdest thing is though, I had a way better time on the deck than I did on my PC. Now granted, I was running it with AMD FSR and at 30 FPS. Now on the footage I'm showing blown up to 1080p, it did look rough, but on the handheld screen it was definitely playable and it held consistent 30 FPS most of the time. I'm sure through all this you've noticed that Gollum himself looks a bit off, and he has weird animations, and there are just so many visual glitches that it took me out of this game completely. Just look at these human and orc models. And yeah, as I keep saying, I'm expecting something lower budget. But when the character models look this weird, I simply just couldn't get into it. The developers didn't do the game any favours by having some characters have generic names like Beastmaster or Cruel Elf Woman. Like, come on, at least give these rather prominent characters actual names. There are basically 2 characters that I encountered that do have names, and to be honest, they're not very interesting. I mean, if you go into this game without knowing anything about Lord of the Rings, you don't know anything about Gollum, you don't know anything about Gandalf, then there's basically zero story here to keep you invested. Now, outside of performance, some of these janky issues I mentioned can be excused if the gameplay is genuinely fun, but it simply isn't, and the game feels rather cheap. There isn't even a proper death animation. Orcs lift you up and hit you, but there's no sound effect when they do it. The game simply shouldn't have been released in this state, but I think underneath all of these issues is a game that isn't fun. It's not designed well, the puzzles are just confusing, They're very few and far between. The stealth sections are okay, but once again, they're very sparse. And in general, it's just missing that fun factor that would keep me coming back. Now, in all of this crap, there is one system that could have potential. There's basically a Smeagol and Gollum morality system. At different points, you'll be faced with choices, and you can choose to do what Gollum would do or what Smeagol would do. And when you choose your option, it starts a conversation similar to that famous scene from the Lord of the Rings movie. And then depending on which side you chose, you have to convince the other that doing the Smeagol or Gollum option is the right thing to do. This does seem to have effect on outcomes of the story. At one point I chose to kill a character instead of sparing them, but I can't confirm how big a role this plays, and you can feck off if you think I'm going back to play this game again to see if the options really do change anything, because I couldn't even beat this game. I didn't have any expectations going into it, but somehow I was still disappointed. I was thinking we'd get maybe, a 6 or 7 out of 10 game that has some charm and maybe some decent level design and fun stealth mechanics. But what I ended up with was a game that every single play session felt like a slog. And ultimately, I didn't even beat it. If the game ran smooth, I might have given it a go, because I know I am only a few chapters away from the end, but I just can't. I simply cannot play this game anymore. Every now and again, we get a great AA game that's worth the price, and then we get other AA games like Biomutant that I would recommend at, say, like a €20 price point. But then you get games like Gollum, and this is a game that even if it was on Game Pass or PS Plus and you could download it for free, I wouldn't even bother downloading. This game is not worth the time it would take to download, and even if this game is on sale for like €10 or something, don't buy it. It's just not fun. Maybe a year down the line with patches the game might run well, but even then the game underneath it isn't fun. The last 2 games I played that were genuinely awful were Babylon's Fall and Gotham Knights, and I had significantly more fun playing both of them games, so please don't buy Gollum. It's not worth it. I really appreciate your time. Don't forget to subscribe. If you actually want to see a game that's worth buying, then check out this video here, join the Discord, and I'll see you all on the next video. Goodbye.